Well, we talked about what we think happened, where this energy that from the subconscious came up, took over, and then some other energy may have kicked in with it as well that started manipulating you. Well, I think that was my suggestion, that some other energy kicked in, and I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think it means that you're not taking responsibility, because that's what we stress first, taking responsibility, right? And making the assumption that the energy came from your subconscious. And we even saw in your chart where Mars had a kind of a disconnected placement. So that Mars energy, that aggressive energy, that anger, has been disconnected from you in some way. And when it's disconnected and builds up, then it jumps out, and it can result in those kinds of incidents where you act out violently. Yeah. But at the same time, after you take responsibility for it, it's not unreasonable to assume that you may have been carrying the whole load for that relationship, and there was a kind of a projection upon you from your husband, and there's an energy transfer. This energy that people carry for each other, especially in close relationships like marriage, where one person will carry all the anger in a relationship, or one person will carry all the sadness, where you'll have a marriage, a partnership, and one person will be really happy and the other person will be really sad, and the sad person is carrying the other person's depression even. Well, that's what happens. So if he carried your sadness and you carried his anger as well as your own, and if you had a little more anger to begin with, that would account for why the anger gravitated towards you. I don't think part of you wants to stay alone and so undermines yourself. I think that's an incorrect assumption. But I do think there's, the pain that's continues to be suppressed, that will undermine you, because that prevents, that blocking that stays in place to prevent that negativity from coming into awareness is the same blocking that prevents any relationship from forming. Well, it's, like you said in the beginning, are you living in the present or are you living in the future when you have thoughts like that? Yeah, but that's a beginning of being in the present, but do you include do you include all your feelings when you try to be in the present? That's really the most important component. Being present with all your feelings as they are. There's a whole spectrum of feelings, and because we suppress that negative, the negative builds up, and so you may have some. Well, not exactly, because that's a judgment. When you say, accept that you made mistakes, you're judging yourself there, right? And you're kind of judging yourself when you say you're alone now and it's okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a judgment there that's unnecessary. You don't have to label your behavior as being a mistake. Right. So because you judge yourself, you feel like other people are judging you. And they're judging you as either being alone or being this or that or whatever. Yeah, it's just coming into the moment. You don't have to form any conclusions about your past actions or about your feelings as they are. All these conclusions have to do with the mind. The mind is trying to sort things out. It's trying to continually defend against deeper experience. It's just a matter of relaxing the mind, putting all this judgmentalism about yourself aside. Whether it's good or bad judgmentalism doesn't really make any difference. But, well, the sense of regret that you may have done something wrong or something that ruined something for you, you have remorse, right? So, the remorse is a feeling that we can move through the process and see if that opens to something else. But behind the remorse, even more primary, is still the pain of your immediate experience. It's the pain of this being alone, the loneliness. That's really primary. It's really primary for all of us. In fact, sometimes I think it's really the most primary experience that we all have. It's just this loneliness that pervades everything and drives us into so many things. But if you can recognize that that's what's behind everything, and come to grips with this loneliness directly, start experiencing how it can be experienced differently from the way you may have been experiencing it so far. You know, there are different ways to think about it. You can think about loneliness as a kind of an individualization that we're all going through as part of our cosmic evolution. We're learning how to individualize. There's a lot of pain associated with that. And the impulse to bond with someone else, on the one hand, it seems like a normal, intuitive, and a very deep desire. There's no question about that as well. But on the other hand, we're not sure if that's really accurate, and there's this need to individualize, this need to be alone, this need to find fulfillment within. And in order to do that, it's a painful process. So we don't really know. Those are the possibilities. But the only thing that we do know, and this is kind of a place where we can feel secure, is we know how we feel right now. We can be present with those feelings right now. That's really the only thing that we can be sure of. And that's what this Buddhist approach that you talked about before is referring to. It's just being present with the moment. Maybe it didn't go deeply enough into the feeling aspect of the moment, but that's what our work does. Well, that's part of the whole syndrome. You go out and you enjoy yourself, being by yourself, but then you want to share it with someone and you feel sad that there's no one to share it with. Yeah, so when that sadness comes up, that's the other pole. Remember, experience occurs dualistically. There's always the positive and the negative. So you had the positive, you enjoyed whatever the experience was that you did by yourself, and then the negative comes up. You feel like you want to have someone to share it with. I can relate to that completely. That's the way it is. That's the way life is. It always comes dualistically, and we need to be able to move to a place of acceptance of that negative. You know, it's not easy. But for me, it comes up when I'm doing my art or doing music. I'll have a fantastic experience with music where I feel like I've really created something, and I want to share it with someone right then and there, just like you're talking about. And it's painful because there's nobody there to share it with, you know. And even when I was in a relationship, I wasn't able to share it with that person. So that it wasn't resolved for me by being in a relationship. And I could have said, and maybe I thought, well, this person doesn't have the capacity to share, or there's a lot of different reasons why she's not available to share with me. But in the end, I had to take responsibility. I had to see that there's just no way of getting past this negative component of the experience. This is one of the foundational aspects of my work, to understand that our experience comes dualistically. We have the powerful, positive, fulfilling experience, but then right behind it there's this negative component of it. We feel unfulfilled for other reasons, because we can't share it, or because nobody understands us. Or even if someone's there, it still doesn't work. Right. So you're saying the same thing. So someone was there, and it appeared like they were going to share it with you, but you weren't, and you weren't able to really fully take it in. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. You think you could do it now, meaning you could be with a person, and then if it still didn't seem to satisfy you, you would be able to accept that? Is that what you're saying? In other words, if the relationship didn't satisfy you completely in all areas, you'd be able to recognize that there was a negative component coming up that you could accept and embrace. And well, I think you're right. I think you've done a lot of work, and I think at this point you'd be able to tolerate that dualistic experience. Yeah. Remember what I said, I think last week or whenever it was, that the ability to tolerate tension, inner tension, the tension of unfulfillment, the tension that we're talking about, this tension of, for example, needing to share with someone and no one's there, the ability to tolerate that and integrate it and experience it and see the big picture, see it as part of the dualistic experience, that's what growth, that's a large part of growth. But it comes down to working energetically, being in the moment, working energetically, working in the body. And it's not just an intellectual realization. See, this is the problem. We know you want that. We know you want a new relationship, and we know that you have new skills now and new tools, and you'd probably be able to do much better in a relationship than you did in the past. But that's the problem. Hoping for a relationship and living in that hope, it's taking you out of the moment. And until you engage fully in the moment with your feelings as they are now, putting aside hope, it can sound extreme, and maybe not everybody's ready to do this. But hope definitely is a crutch and takes you out of the moment. So maybe a practical way to proceed would be just to put hope aside for the session when you're just sitting alone, sitting with the intention of processing your feelings. Then put hope aside for that session. Well, that's exactly what our work is all about, being in the moment and being okay with everything the way it is. And you do that by invoking the witness, by detaching yourself from those feelings, breaking the identification. Well, look, let's go into a process and try to address all these feelings you're talking about. Because you got a lot of random feelings coming up here, and thoughts and impulses and things pushing you all over the place, and behind them there's probably just one or two feelings that are common to all these things. Yeah, okay, so it's the loss and the sadness. So that motivates you. So let's do that right now. So close your eyes. Start taking a few breaths, a few deep breaths. Feel yourself relaxing on the exhale. Feel yourself moving into your body. The body is always coincident with your feelings. As you move into your body, you move into the moment. Feel yourself moving towards your body. As you're moving towards your body, become just more aware of all these mental gymnastics and judgments that you get wrapped up in. Just start putting them aside. Let the mind start to rest. See all this judgmentalism of yourself and this tendency to hope, this tendency to live in the future. Just understand that it's an effort of the mind to take you out of your experience. And based on the work we've done and everything we've talked about, that you need to move into the present. So bring in some white light now to energize yourself. See it coming in as you inhale, going down to your solar plexus. Feel yourself being strengthened and fortified, energized. This is the energy that can empower you to be present with your feelings. So feel yourself being empowered. Feel yourself gaining that capacity to do exactly what we're talking about, to be present with your feelings. And then ground down to the earth. Visualize the connection from the center of the earth up to the base of your spine. Bring up earth energy on the inhale. And establish a connection for discharging negativity on the exhale. And now go up to the third eye. This is the final step to get you into a place where you can process successfully. Look up at the third eye, straining your eyes upwards. Feel that higher self consciousness as it starts to awaken. Feel this capacity for witnessing, stepping back, and also accepting all the energy, all the emotions, everything that comprises the lower self, all these painful feelings, these painful parts of the lower self. You can accept because you're stepping back, you're witnessing, you're detaching, you're breaking the identification with them. Really take a minute and try to understand and feel what I mean when I say breaking the identification with these lower body feelings. Because that's what needs to occur here. You've been enmeshed in the feelings. You've been identified with the feelings. Everything we've been talking about for the first 20 minutes today, there's been a complete identification with the feelings. So find it within yourself to step back and break the identification. You're something different from your feelings. All these painful feelings, as well as the positive feelings. Let that sense of witnessing really grab hold. So you feel you're something besides your feelings. Your feelings need to be recognized, need to be experienced, but they should not be allowed to motivate you, to drive you, especially into compulsive behaviors. And the way to get past the sense of being compulsive is to witness. Keep breathing. Use the breath to bring in more energy. Okay, release the third eye if you haven't already. And just go back to your body and see what feeling is there. You see, but this all has a future reference. You will be okay. You'll figure this out. So you're saying that you need to do something. You need to figure something out and then you'll be okay. That's not it. You're okay now. Okay, if you're overwhelmed, then recognize that and withdraw. Go up to the third eye. Or go to your safe place, like we've talked about. Just for a moment, go up to the third eye and detach. As you go up to the third eye, go to your safe place. Go to that place inside where you're protected, safe from any kind of negative feelings. So just find a place, being with anything that comforts you and protects you. Okay, so let's make a note of this and recognize that you're establishing a safe place right now. Use that image. That's fine. Use that image. Just be present in that place, in that image, and allow yourself to be completely protected, completely safe. So this is not processing. This is just stepping back for a moment when you need to, and supporting yourself. Keep bringing in the energies from the sun, from the earth. Feel yourself protected by the light and by this image in this safe place. Just stay here until you feel better. And recognize that you can go here anytime you need to, whether it's in the middle of a interaction or whether it's during a meditation when feelings come up. Good. So keep breathing into this image that you have. Now, using the safe place, even though it's not processing and it's avoiding feelings, it's better to get in the habit of doing this rather than relying on any of the other self-rejecting mechanisms that you fall into, like going into the future, hoping about the future, or having remorse about the past. It's the same thing. The remorse about the past. The remorse about the past is similar as hoping about the future. It's still the mind wants to go forward because it has remorse about the past, and the remorse is just a self-rejecting mechanism. The ultimate purpose of that is to defend and suppress feelings. And that's no good. That's the way the mind works. So whenever you have remorse, recognize it's the mind kicking in, trying to take you away from an authentic experience with your feeling. Whenever you have hope of moving into the future, recognize it's the mind kicking in, trying to take you away from an authentic experience of your feelings. The authentic experience of being in the moment right now. That's where healing occurs. So let's go back to your feelings. Let's come out of the safe place for a moment and just see how you do. Let's ask your higher self to guide you here into just the appropriate amount of any feeling. Maybe it'll be loneliness. So if fear is coming up, that's fine. Just stay present with the fear. So go up to the third eye. As you're being present with the fear now, you're not turning away from it. Relax into it. Be present with it. But separate yourself from it as you move into this acceptance of it. Release the third eye. Let that sense of witnessing linger on. Just be present with that feeling. The third eye is not a means to turn away from the feeling. It's a means to invoke witnessing as you're being present with the feeling. But if it gets to be too big, then go to your safe place. Right, when you go to the third eye, you start shifting over into the higher self, so that you feel like you're the higher self. You're something different from the lower self. You have all these feelings. They're all part of the lower self. They are part of you in a certain way, but it's the lower self. It's the part that we're growing away from. So we don't want to minimize this lower self or push it away or reject it or pretend that it's not there. That's what creates suppression of the feelings. The feelings need to be recognized. Good. So let that feeling of being separated from the feelings, that's it. You're owning the feelings on the lower self level, but you're separating yourself from them on the higher self. And that becomes a really tangible experience. This is when integration starts to occur, when you start to separate yourself simultaneously as when you're owning the feelings on the lower self level. Sure, you can do it during any kind of confrontation, whenever anything's happening in real life. Just switch over and start witnessing your feelings. That's really, in a way, one of the goals of the whole process, is to enable you to do that anytime. That would be meditating all the time. That's what meditation is, or for me, that's one way of really thinking of one of the important, if not the main importance of meditation, is this ability to step back and witness your experience. It's a good way to think of meditation. Where are you now? Yeah, the fear is a big one for all of us. Just stay present with the fear. Break the identification. Try going up to the third eye again right now. For short bursts, look up, strain your eyes upwards. Keep breathing. Stay present with the fear. Find it in your body. Just watch it. Release the third eye. Stay present with the fear. Yeah, it's not necessary to know what it is, because when you know what it is, really what you know is just what it's becoming projected on. So, in a way, being present with just the pure experience of fear is a more authentic, better way to work with the feeling. Can you find it in your body, any place? Okay, solar plexus. So just, you can breathe into that area a little more. No, you don't want to try to influence it by wanting it to go away, or imagining it's going away, or substituting a positive. Right, you don't want to visualize it dispersing, or you don't want to visualize it being displaced by some other positive feeling, because that's just more activity of the mind trying to avoid the experience. When it's ready, when it's the right time, the feeling will spontaneously shift into the next experience, whatever that is. And we don't want to try to anticipate that or influence that. That's an important part of being present with the experience. Dropping any intention for it to be anything other than what it is right now. It also makes it a lot easier. You don't have to do any work here. All you have to do is be present in the moment with your experience. Letting go of trying to bring things into your life by imagining them or using affirmations or thinking positively. You don't need to do any of that. And those things happen when that's what trusting is, really. Trusting in your higher self. That's what trust is. Are you still with the fear? Yeah, okay, that's good. So you can let that fear even spread throughout your entire body with a complete sense of acceptance. You don't need to know what the fear is attaching itself to. As you do that, it becomes more of an energetic experience rather than an emotional experience. You know what I mean? It's kind of just an energy in your body that's we've been labeling as bad. But when you move to that experience of it on a pure energetic level, the fear transforms into something somewhat different. And when it does that, it's much easier to accept and be present with and see it in your body. And there's no question that at a certain point, this experience, because you're doing it correctly now, you're being present with that energetic, there's no question that it's going to shift into the next linked feeling. And that's what the process is. That's moving through the process. That's transcending through releasing feelings, through balancing feelings, through giving guidance over to the higher self and just surrendering to whatever that higher self brings to us. We need to start winding down, but if you want to continue after we hang up, you can certainly do that, or continue tonight. Bring in some more white light to lift yourself up, to really energize yourself. Fill up any dark places. Lift yourself out of any dark places. Feel yourself joyful, powerful, strong, on top of any negativity. And then I'll count you up to 5.